or not you're watching The White Lotus, you can't look at a screen this week without seeing the faces of 3 female friends. They are Laurie, Jaclyn and Kate, and they all swanned into reception on episode 1 of the very popular, very successful prestige TV show in their designer caftans, in a cloud of "you look fabulous," and with big cocktail energy. Jaclyn is a Hollywood actress. She's married to a hot younger man. Kate's career is unclear, but she is married to a high-profile rich man in Austin, Texas. And Laurie is a lawyer and a single mum who lives in New York. They're all wealthy and conventionally beautiful, although Jaclyn is clearly paying for everything. And there's a possibility that Laurie hasn't had Botox. Don't tell anyone. If you're super keen to dive into White Lotus, we did do a whole episode about that for subscribers yesterday. But even if you've never seen it, what these 3 characters have sparked is a conversation about female friendships. Because what's quickly revealed, particularly in the first few minutes of episode 2, is that these old friends who apparently have all known each other since they were 9 and they went to school together are on a girls' trip, and who hasn't been on one of those, and they are not quite the mutual cheerleaders they appear. Welcome to the birth of 1,000 memes, hot takes about toxic female friendships, and ponderings about whether female friendship, which is so exalted in our culture, is really just a passive-aggressive smokescreen hiding all our insecurities. Jessie, have you been Kate, Jaclyn or Laurie?
I absolutely have, but I am. And I was watching this the other night with Luca, who paused it and said, "This is what I struggle with when it comes to female friendships."
That's
and
so interesting.
Just to be clear, Luca spends a lot of time with women. He works in a female office, and a lot of our friends and everything are women. So he has definitely seen signs of this behaviour. But we were talking about it, and I said, they are not my friendships anymore. I totally recognise it. That's why I think that it's brilliant. I have been part of it. I have had that feeling of you can nearly hear what they're saying about you as you leave the room, of someone attempting intimacy with you by bitching about the outsider. Totally recognise that. But I don't think that this is some universal truth about female friendships. I think it's a specific type. But it was funny because I was speaking to my mum about it this morning. And Mum said, I said, this, I don't recognise it as much anymore. And Mum said, "Oh, no, they're not my friendships either, except for Suzanne. You know what Suzanne's like." And I was like, it's a little bit of, that.
I'm rolling my eyes at you so hard. All female friendships are like this all the time. Absolutely.
See, I worried that. And I was like, maybe I'm just the Laurie who's just not and I'm just totally naive, not knowing.
Suzanne. Yeah, maybe.
I'm the Suzanne, exactly.
We should mention that you changed your name now.
I did.
Surely you've been in that group chat where you've said something and then there's a little bit of silence in the group chat and you can practically hear everyone else going off to the other group chat to talk about you and the insane thing you just said. 100%. Or maybe that's just me.
No. Absolutely.
And I think I'm here to kind of defend this instinct amongst women, which seems like a tall order, but hear me out. I think what we're essentially talking about is gossip. And you're essentially saying that women don't gossip about their friends if they're mature and nice, which I don't think is true.
I think they gossip, but I think that what is underlying this gossip is a very specific thing. But continue.
I think that the reason why women gossip is 2 reasons. The first is that women have to put up with maintaining relationships much more than men do. Mm-hmm. To put it another way, maintaining friendships and relationships is more important to a lot of women than it is to a lot of men. And one way that you can maintain and upkeep relationships is by sharing information, particularly information that is prized because it is rare or it is secret or not a lot of people know it. That's what gossip is essentially. It's a way of fast-tracking intimacy. So that's the first reason why I think women do it. The second reason why I think women do it is because information for women can be really valuable. And of course it can be for men too, but let me give you an example again from Pete Hegseth because when he was in the confirmation hearings, he is a bit actually, except the opposite of Timothy.
I know, yeah.
His sister-in-law came out and said that she knew a safe word that his wife had told her. And she came out with this because that's a fact and it shows that this woman is in an abusive relationship. Now, the way you get to talk about things like this is you have to have to open the floodgates. You have to share intimate information with your friends.
Yes.
And in some lights, sure, you could say talking about someone else's marriage is gossip, but in some ways it can often really be a way of ensuring that your friends are safe.
And that's the thing, that's the intention, right? So absolutely, if there was a situation where I thought that my friend was marrying an awful person, if I was worried about them, absolutely, I might go to someone else and say that. And that might genuinely be coming from a place of concern. In this instance, it isn't. I keep looking at these three women and going, you don't like each other. You fundamentally don't like each other. You don't have that much in common. And the reason they have to keep going behind each other's backs is because nothing they say to each other's faces is true.
So why are they hanging out if they don't like each other?
Because of a shared history. And I think there's something specific here about maybe people you went to school with and the dynamics of a group you went to school with, because you're sort of the thing you're attracted to is the history and the mythology and the story that you've got, that you've been friends from school. You've actually grown up in totally different directions and you don't know each other anymore. They don't know why a friend is divorced. If they could sit there and just go, my marriage fell apart because I cheated, or I have an alcohol problem, or actually my career's not going that well, then they wouldn't be craving that gossip behind the scenes. I think they're craving the intimacy because it's not happening with the three of them.
Also, the picture we're being painted here is of three very sort of aspirational women who look on the outside like everything is perfect. Like that's why the main thing they say to each other all the time is, you look amazing, you look amazing. You're like, it's just over and over. It's all about the outside, right? And they're not really interested in the inside. I think you're both right, because I think that way more female friendships than we like to acknowledge are exactly like this. And I know I've been those people.
Yeah.
I know I've been those people who are like going, oh, it's so great to be with you and I love you so much. But then, there's someone will be like, she looks a bit, and you're like, we've all been there, right? I personally have rules about which I think whether or not I'm prepared to gossip about you probably tells you whether or not you're really a good friend. Do you know what I mean? Because people always want to know. We got to remember in this dynamic, one of them is famous, right? Jaclyn is famous and super successful, and so she's always going to be at the top of the leaderboard, to use a Miaism, right? And I recognise this because I have some Jaclyns in my life. They're called Mia and Jessie. And there's an argument we're all Jaclyns to a point, but anyway, I wish. But anyway, people will always, if they meet me, get to know me, like they're friends of friends, they're in my circle somehow, they want information about you guys, right? They'll be like, is Mia really do they really like each other? That must be so weird working with your mother. Well, obviously. That must be so weird working with your mother-in-law. And they're just chipping, and they're thinking maybe if she has another wine. Like, you know what I mean? They'll get some gossip. Closed door policy on that for me, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely not. And so, but with Mia and Jessie, I will gossip about it.
About each other too, presumably.
But also and it's like a very good friend of mine who went through a divorce. Everybody else in the circle, how's she doing? What's really the story about that divorce? Like, dig. No, closed book, absolutely. But within the little confines of a very close friendship group, of course you will talk about that.
But the reason why people ask why are they getting divorced, how's she doing, etc. Divorce is one of those things where it is about information sharing, and when people hear that someone has gotten divorced, they want to make sure they avoid that fate themselves. That's why they're digging for information there.
There's that. And there's also, I think the question of, are these people, and I'm part of friendship groups that, might be from my past or whatever, where if I'm honest with myself, I've gone, these people aren't rooting for you.
Yes.
In fact, a lot of their behaviour suggests they don't actually like you, which is an awful realisation, but you go, they're just not. You can tell when someone's rooting for you. And these women aren't. And, Holly, you're talking about Mia and me and you, and I'm sure that there's elements and dynamics that can be complicated, but are you rooting for each other? Yes. So if there's a
100%.
thing behind your back where it's like, oh, do you think that Mia's a bit stressed at the moment? You're not saying it to undermine her or to create some little gang behind her back. It's actually there's kind of faux concern, and then there is genuine, real concern.
Because there are times when you do need to say to somebody, do you think that this person who I love need some help. Like there are times when you need to do that and you have to pick very carefully who that person is. The thing that's interesting about this is what Lucas said when he saw it, and he said, this is one of the things I have trouble with about women. I totally understand what he means, because this dynamic, like Mike White, who writes White Lotus, is very clever, and I'm sure it's going to go in all kinds of interesting directions. But it is a very familiar trope. You know, I was thinking about how when Harry Met Sally is like, can men and women really be friends? I think there's a question of like, can women and women really be friends?
Yeah.
Like we are constantly pitted in competition with each other. Who's more beautiful? Who's got fewer wrinkles? Who's richer? Who's got a hotter husband? Who's got like, and it's like this constant and professional success, of course. And I mean, it's a well-worn trope, but I think there's truth to it. Is that we've always been convinced there isn't enough to go around for us, so we have to strap over
Can competitiveness coexist with friendship? Do you think? Like, if you're feeling genuinely competitive, I'm thinking about my really, really close friends, and I'm a very competitive person. I don't feel competitive with them. Is that like, do you think that that's something that, because here you can see that they're all competing for various things. Like, do you think that women can, is this a trope, or is this a genuine reflection of female friendship?
I think they're competing, but not necessarily in the way that we're discussing here. I think they're competing with each other for intimacy. And there's a dynamic with girls' trips where they tend to be with people who you maybe don't see every day. That's why you're going on a trip with them. And you have to catch up on all these months or years of daily chats in a very intense 3-day period or what have you. And I think that one way to get there is to sort of immediately start with the existential questions. Is this person okay? Does this person have a drinking problem? What's this person's marriage like? And it's almost like that's the dynamic of a girls' trip. You often get to the heart of things a little too quickly.
And when someone, even just one of them, lets the front go, lets the perfect story go, because they're all trying to tell each other perfect stories about how life is. If just one of them were to let that go, then I think the quality of the friendship would just skyrocket.